Lee Smith, author and journalist, and you've done a lot of work on Trump. You've written now, I think, 3 books about the efforts to undermine President Trump, and here he is elected. Did you expect this outcome?
Yes, I did expect the outcome. I mean, lots of people did. What we were concerned about was we were concerned about the we were concerned about fraud, frankly, in different polling places, especially across the battleground states. But it appears that both the RNC, the Trump campaign, as well as state Republican parties did a did a terrific job. So they were out there, they were fighting all the time, they were taking cases to court, they were threatening lawsuits. So I mean, they were on the ball. I mean, I thought that a Trump victory would not be announced tonight. I thought it would, I thought we'd be waiting at least, or rather last night, that we'd be waiting for some time. And of course, now though, even with the immediate announcement of a Trump victory, we're looking at the second phase of Donald Trump's return to the presidency. The first page was the campaign. The campaign ended. The campaign ended with Donald Trump's victory, and now the second phase is getting Donald Trump back into the White House. And the Democrats have already promised that they're going to make that exceedingly difficult, if not impossible. But we really are very fortunate, though, that the result was announced very early in the morning, because as I show in my book, Disappearing the President, my new book, that delays in announcing election results correlate not just with fraud, but also with violence. And so that's that's one of the concerns going forward now over the next few months between the election and between the inauguration. So I mean, of course, we all hope that we all hope there is no violence, but the Democrats have threatened it. They've been threatening it for years.
Lee?
And so that's where we are right now.
So, Lee, your book, Plot Against the President, which was really about the Russia collusion hoax and all of the efforts to kneecap Trump's presidency with these fake charges that he colluded with Russia that led to the first impeachment, which was all based on nonsense. And you did the best investigative work on that. It was later turned into a very successful documentary film. But keeping all of that in mind, and we look at right now, Trump has won this election. The other side's not just going to throw us the keys and say, "Okay, you won." We have, whether it's the intelligence community or all the globalist actors, leaders of other governments around the world, and the media, they all have an interest in preventing Donald Trump from taking the presidency. Do you have specific concerns going forward now, or a playbook that you can see unfolding between now and January 20th? What should we brace ourselves for?
Yes, I'm going to tell you some of I'll give you a sense of what some of their scenarios look like, and then I'll give you what I believe is crucial to resolving that situation before it gets out of hand. So Rosa Brooks, who was an official in Barack Obama's Pentagon, has war-gamed a number of different scenarios for the 2024 race. These all came out at the end of July, and Brooks famously did this for the 2020 race. And what this really did was, it was not a war game forecast. These were post-election contingency planning scenarios. So that led to such things as January 6th. It led to banishing Trump from Twitter, a whole bunch of different activities. So when we see that she's talking about 2024, we can take it very seriously that this is what the Democrats, this is what activists are planning. And so the plan right now is that there will be massive amounts of violence. I suspect there will be massive amounts of violence leading into the election, or rather leading into the inauguration. And then another scenario proposes that with a Trump presidency, there will be such massive street violence that the president, the newly reelected president, will be compelled to implement or invoke the Insurrection Act, at which time his senior military officials will refuse to obey his orders. Other military officials will obey his orders. But that right there, what we're talking about right there, is a split in the senior levels of the U.S. Armed Forces. So that's exceedingly dangerous. So that's one of the scenarios to keep in mind as we're moving forward. I think that one of the ways right now to avoid or to try to short circuit these things before they get out of hand is that the Trump team should send an envoy to Barack Obama and advise him to leave Washington. He should have left Washington after the 2016 race, because by staying in Washington, this is what was so extraordinary. Obama staying in Washington. The reason that no other presidents aside from Woodrow Wilson stayed in Washington was so that they didn't even give anything like an impression that the transfer of executive authority was complete. The reason that Wilson didn't leave was because Wilson had had a stroke. He was incapacitated for the last year and a half of his presidency. Obama is the only man who's ever done that in American history. And of course, Obama, it is Obama who's responsible, who's ultimately led the anti-Trump campaign since 2016. So I think one of the ways, again, to short circuit some of these plans is to send an envoy to Obama, advise him that he's going to have to leave Washington. It's not a threat, but that he has to leave Washington. If not that now that Congress, now that Republicans control, it appears that they've maintained control of the House and have regained control of the Senate. There will be legislation written forbidding former presidents from staying in Washington. So they'll further underscore that. I think really right now, whatever can be done to illustrate what a negative influence Barack Obama has cast over American politics since 2016 is very, very important. He's been leading it. It's time that he leaves the political scene.
So, Lee, another area that you've been at the forefront in your investigative reporting has to do with the relationship to Iran, and specifically the infiltration of Iranian operatives and Iranian assets into the State Department and into the current White House. How do you see especially at this critical juncture with Israel and Iran, obviously in the middle of a war that Iran is fighting through its proxies against Israel and also directly through its various missile attacks and Israel's retaliations? How do you see that aspect of things playing out in this transition?
It's an extremely important victory for Israel, and for Iran. Here's how I think about it. Israel's ongoing operation against Hezbollah has weakened, if not eliminated, Iran's deterrence, right? This is how Iran is always understood, as Hezbollah described it. It's like, oh, it's our deterrence against Israel in the event that, the Zionists should try to strike our nuclear weapons program, right? Well, they've lost their deterrence. And now with the Trump victory, they've lost their strategic depth. It's very important to see what's gone on here. Certainly during the Obama administration as well. The only thing really sustaining what's a remarkably brittle regime as Israel's operations against Iran's proxies and Iran itself have shown. It's an extraordinarily brittle regime, a very weak regime. And the only thing that was protecting them for so long, as it turns out, was Barack Obama with the nuclear deal. Sanctions relief that flooded the regime's war chest with hundreds of billions of dollars, and now that's over, right? So Iran is in a great deal of trouble. Will they still attack Israel as they've been threatening? I think it's quite possible, because I think it's not the most strategically brilliant regime, but I think that they're in very serious trouble right now. And if I were advising the Islamic Republic of Iran, I'd say, guys, now's a pretty good time. Let's keep our heads down for a little bit. Let's shut up and stay out of the picture. It's very bad for them.
Lee, before I let you go, just tell our viewers a little bit more about the new book. I understand the title is Disappearing the President. What exactly is the book? Where can people find it?
Well, they can order it directly from encounterbooks.com. Of course, it's also available on Amazon. Barnes and Noble. But what it's about, it's really a comprehensive account of what's happened in the last 8 years, the efforts to go after Donald Trump, which of course includes Russiagate, but it goes all the way up to the assassination attempts, the efforts to kill Donald Trump, and also it explains who's been leading the anti-Trump operation since 2016. And Pesach, as you've heard me explaining here, it's Trump's predecessor, Barack Obama. And so I think that for our country now and for our allies, for Israel, I think that we're heading into a very good moment. I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm concerned, as I said, about the violence, but I think I'm at an exciting time. It's an amazing time. There are people who didn't go to sleep last night. I'm among them. Just talking to friends, figuring out what's going on, celebrating. It's been a very hard 4 years for all Americans, not just Trump supporters. Everything from, our borders have been thrown open. Crime is surging. People are hurting. Inflation. Lots of Americans are having trouble affording, affording their life. So it's a very happy time here, and I'm certain that Israel or America's allies like Israel are celebrating as well. I saw the very nice social media post from Prime Minister Netanyahu. And again, I would imagine real friends of America all over the world are celebrating along with us, and we appreciate it. And God bless them all. God bless you all.
There's certainly reason to celebrate in the pro-Israel community. It's a new day has dawned. Lee Smith, new book, Disappearing the President. If you want to really follow the whole plot of how they've gone after Donald Trump, that's the book to look for. Lee Smith, thank you once again for joining us on the Israel National News and Israel 365 special election coverage.